Yuji's Heavenly Domain expansion will be the strongest domain expansion in the entire series, and it will actually be the key to defeating Sukuna, finally putting a rest to this monster. Now there are 4 possibilities on what Yuji's domain could be, and all 4 of them are absolutely wild, and I guarantee you, we will be seeing one of these in the series. So strap in, because this is going to be a wild theory video. But hey, be sure to leave a like, it helps out a ton, thank you, and of course if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for a ton of consistent and quality JJK content just like this. Less than 10% of people who actually watch my videos are subscribed, so if you love JJK, I promise you, you will not regret subscribing. And of course, thank you to the special members of the channel, it is always much appreciated. Let's get right into this. So the first possibility is that his domain expansion will actually have to do with blood manipulation, maybe specifically it would actually have to do with the death paintings that he has. Now I made a video breaking down the 9 specific abilities that he should get from the death paintings, and what this domain expansion would be is actually tying each of the death painting abilities into his own domain expansion, and each of them would actually be a sure hit. Now we did actually see Yuji use blood manipulation in the most recent chapter, so yes, 100% it's confirmed Yuji can use blood manipulation. It's likely that the reason he hasn't actually been using it or abusing it like many people thought is because right now the goal is to hit direct attacks on Sukuna, you know, physical attacks to actually shake his soul up and wake Megami up, because right now we are in the Megami plan. So of course if he has a chance to hit Sukuna, he's not going to be using blood manipulation, he wants every single hit to be a physical strike. But now that we've seen that the Megami plan has actually fallen through, he may actually be forced to finally use blood manipulation and not limit himself for Megami anymore. And one way we may see this is the blood manipulation domain expansion. Now I really hope we get to see this, because out of the 3 big clans, this is the only domain expansion we haven't seen. We know for an absolute fact blood manipulation should have a domain expansion, since its actual potential is on par with the 6 Eyes Limitless and 10 Shadows. As has been confirmed throughout history, it's been that way for 1,000 years, and we even had the 3 Vengeful Cursed Spirits who had each of the techniques rival each other, with of course Gojo's ancestor Sugawara actually being someone who at the very least is around Gojo's level, potentially even being stronger than him. In Gojo's own words, they should be close, and the blood manipulation user from the Heian era was supposedly on the same level as this guy, so it should have that potential, it should have a domain expansion. If we do get to see it, I imagine it'd be similar to how the Chimera Shadow Garden has shadows all around, so you can summon Shikigami from anywhere. Imagine being a domain expansion that's just like that, but fully made of blood, so you'd have blood surrounding you, almost like Unohana's domain expansion, Bankai. It was a place filled with blood, it could be similar to that, so basically you'd be getting hit from blood all around you. You'd have an infinite amount of blood to work with, so that whole limitation of blood manipulation, you'd only have a limited amount, that's gone. And of course you would also have a deadly sure hit on top of it. It could potentially be one of the strongest domains you've ever seen in the series, and if someone's going to use this domain expansion, I hope to God it's Yuji. And if I had to throw a name on it, it could be Death Paintings Palace or Blood Brothers Domain. It could be something really cool like that, you know, tying to the Death Paintings or Brothers theme, because you know, it's where he actually got his blood manipulation from. The next possibility for this domain is, it's what the fanbase likes to say, the left, right, good night domain expansion, and it's been thrown around as a joke, but I genuinely believe that this could be a thing, and I'll give my reasonings why, even though I think it's got the least likely chance of being true. It would be a domain where everyone who's inside of the domain, their ability to use cursed techniques and potentially even cursed energy disappears. It would more so be like Hikari's domain or Higuruma's domain, how just like domains back in the day, rather than having a lethal sure hit, it just has sort of rules that everyone in the domain has to play by, just as Tengen said. So in this domain, all you can do is just use physical attacks, or it could be very similar to Magna from Black Clover or Shuhei's Bankai from Bleach, where everyone inside of the domain would have an equal amount of cursed energy and they're forced to fight in that sort of scenario, and it'd be kind of an even playing field. I do like the first possibility where there's no cursed energy, it's just hand-to-hand combat. Now the only issue is that to create a domain expansion, you actually need to apply your own curse technique into the domain to make that happen. So you'd be thinking, what sort of curse technique is this for Yuji to actually create something like this? And it's more so the fact that it's not a sure hit that Yuji's actually making, and it's just the rule of the domain, if that makes sense. So the actual sure hit could be something else, and just the general rule of the domain could be that sort of rule where you can't use cursed energy. And because this rule is applied to Yuji as well, that should be a reason why it should apply to everyone else. So it's not like a huge unfair advantage. And we've seen characters do this, such as Higuruma and also Hikari, where they have rules that have nothing to do with the curse technique themselves, but because it's not a sure hit, and because these rules are applied to everyone, you can kind of stretch what they are. And maybe this can actually give us some more insight onto why Yuji's so physically strong, because this is something that still has not been explained to this day. Why is Yuji so strong physically? Is it a heavenly restriction? Did Kenjaku do something to him when he was born? Does it have to do with whoever he's actually reincarnated as? We still don't know, and I hope JJK doesn't end before we get this answer, because it would be so weird if Yuji, for whatever reason, years before he's got cursed energy, he was just like this as a kid, is just so physically powerful that he's even stronger than pre-awakened Maki, who actually has a nerfed heavenly restriction, and he's just that strong for no reason. There has to be a reason, and I hope we get to find out soon, and maybe that reason is actually tied to his domain expansion. The third possibility, and the coolest sounding one, is the Heavenly Shinbutsu domain expansion. Now you may have heard this word Shinbutsu before, and that's actually because we've seen a Shinbutsu mummy in JJK. This was sort of the mummy that Tengen had actually stored, and we don't know what this mummy is. Maybe it's Sukuna's old corpse, or maybe this mummy is is Sukuna's twin's body, and it was specifically referred to as a Shinbutsu mummy. So what is a Shinbutsu mummy or Shinbutsu? As shout Wikipedia, which I'm about to read through, it's gonna carry me hard here. Soku Shinbutsu are a kind of Buddhist mummy. In Japan, the term refers to the practice of Buddhist monks observing asceticism to the point of death and entering mummification while they're alive. Now, what is asceticism? Asceticism is a lifestyle categorized by the abstinence from sensual pleasures, often for the purpose of pursuing spiritual goals. And now, in case you haven't noticed, this is directly against all of Sukuna's ideology, what he believes in, because Sukuna literally believes in only living for his pleasure, only living for what makes him happy or enjoy himself. He literally just does what he wants to do. And as I'm going to read from the wiki, it's a lifestyle categorized by the renunciation of material possessions and physical pleasures. So it's pretty interesting how this mummy that looks just like Sukuna and has the exact same face, right? Seriously, it's the same skull, is doing this Shinbutsu mummification, which is something that Sukuna would be completely against. So maybe it's actually Sukuna's twin who did that. We don't really know. There's so much that goes into it. I've made a whole video around just that mummy itself. But the point is, if Yuji's domain is actually a Shinbutsu domain, this would be such a good narrative choice because it would go against everything Sukuna stands for, and this is exactly what Yuji stands for. He's going to sacrifice all of his pleasures, all of his joys. He's going to sacrifice all of it to defeat Sukuna. So maybe inside of this domain it actually forces you to partake in a Shinbutsu mummification, or over time it will make everyone inside of the domain a Shinbutsu mummy. So it could be a way that Yuji's actually going to basically sacrifice himself and even give away his own life, but in exchange it may take away Sukuna's own life by forcing him to partake in this own mummification on Sukuna himself. And it'd be quite a beautiful way for Sukuna to go out, where again you're basically defeating him with the ideology that goes against his own. It would be so narratively fitting, it would be so beautiful, and I seriously hope that this domain, the heavenly Shinbutsu domain, is the one we actually get to see. And because it's also been foreshadowed, since we've seen that Shinbutsu mummy has something to do with Sukuna's past and Tengen is holding on to it for a reason. And the last domain expansion that we may see is a soul-based domain expansion. Now look, I know it's very likely that Yuji's soul manipulation, which he's doing right now, isn't a curse technique. It's why in my videos I often refer to it as just a technique and not a curse technique, since it seems like it's an ability that he's just doing specifically because of all the experiences that he's had and how he's able to see the world, and because he's read Yuki's book, and because he's harbored another soul, and obviously because he's fought Mahito as well, so now he's able to damage souls and even interact with them to some extent, which we've seen him do with Megami and Sukuna right now. But it may be possible that, just as I explained before, he may apply something else to the domain. So the domain's sure hit could be a blood manipulation related one, but the actual rules around the domain could have to do with the soul technique that he has. So he's not embedding the actual soul technique into the domain, but he's applying these rules that would actually amplify his soul manipulation into the domain. And this could be sort of a last resort that you'd have to use to actually save Megami's soul, or to bring him out of Sukuna's body, or I guess I should say bring Sukuna out of Megami's body, since that's what's going on. And it's possible that inside of this domain, Yuji's soul attacks would actually hit heavier. Maybe he would actually be able to interact easier with Megami's soul inside of this domain. Or it could even be something like Naruto, how when Naruto peaked inside of his own body and he basically unleashed the seal on Kurama's soul, he was sort of having a soul tug of war with Kurama in that state with the Nine Tails. It may be similar there, where there could actually be a tug of war struggle between Yuji and Sukuna inside of this domain for Megami's own soul. And to actually win that tug of war, he'd actually need to motivate Megami and bring some light back into him, because right now he doesn't have the will to live. And it's possible that if he actually gives Megami the will to live, he would be able to tug his soul out, or I guess I should say the opposite, tug Sukuna's own soul out, and that may be the clash. It'd be a really cool tug of war sort of scenario where he basically has to defeat Sukuna via these hacks, because you can't defeat Sukuna right now with how he is. This guy is an absolute monster, unless you have some plot ability specifically catered to defeating this guy or pulling his soul out or doing something like that. I'm sorry, you're just not beating Sukuna. This guy is a beast. I mean, getting hit by a max output Jacob's ladder after losing 2 arms wasn't enough to beat this guy. I just don't know what is. So hopefully this soul domain expansion that maybe Yuji has would be the key to actually defeating Sukuna right here, right now. But which of these domain expansions do you think Yuji's gonna get? Or do you have your own idea on which domain you think Yuji will get? Let me know, I'm very curious to hear. And if you did enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like, it helps out a ton. Thank you very much. And of course, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for a ton of consistent and quality JJK content just like this. Like I said in the beginning, less than 10% of people who actually watch my videos are subscribed. So if you love JJK, I promise you, you will not regret subscribing. And of course, thank you to all the channel members as well. It is always much appreciated. Thank you guys very much. That's all from me. Have a great day and take care, everyone.